Listen closely, there's something most men never understand. Women don't chase confidence, they chase certainty, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that lives inside you, deep, stable, unshakable. If you want to understand that, stay with me. And if this resonates, subscribe, not because I'm asking, because you'll want to come back here. Now let's begin. Women never forget a man who knows exactly who he is, not who he's pretending to be, not who he's trying to become, not who others tell him he should be, but who he actually is. Most men misunderstand this. They confuse self-knowledge with arrogance. They think knowing yourself means talking about it, defending it, proving it. That's not self-knowledge. Real self-knowledge is silent. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need agreement. It just exists like a foundation beneath a house. And when a woman meets a man like this, something shifts inside her. She can't explain it. She doesn't even fully understand it herself, but she feels it. And that feeling stays with her. That's what she never forgets. So what does this look like in real life? It looks like a man who knows his values and doesn't trade them for comfort. Not because he's rigid, because he's examined his life. He knows what matters. He knows what doesn't. And he moves accordingly. He doesn't say no to everything. He says yes to what aligns and no to what doesn't. No apology, no explanation, no need for approval. Women notice this instantly because most of their lives they've been around men who shift constantly. Men who soften their opinions to be liked. Men who change themselves to fit in. Men who give away their power without realizing they had any. Then they meet a man who doesn't do that. And something in them wakes up. This isn't about being difficult, it's about being at ease with yourself. So comfortable in who you are that you don't need to fight. Don't need to prove, don't need to convince. That level of peace is deeply attractive. But here's where most men go wrong. They think certainty comes later. They believe they need to figure everything out first, become perfect first, then confidence will arrive. That's backwards. Certainty doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from accepting that you'll figure things out as you go. It comes from commitment. You're the kind of man who takes responsibility, who grows, who learns, who doesn't hide behind excuses. That's the foundation, character. Women never forget a man with character. Not because he never fails, but because of how he responds when he does. Does he blame the world, make excuses, disappear, or does he look at himself honestly, take responsibility, adjust, and move forward? When a woman sees that, she sees strength. She sees someone solid, someone reliable, someone who won't collapse when life gets hard. That's the man she remembers. Now let's go deeper. Most men are performing. They perform for their fathers, for their peers, for women, for society. They build a version of themselves and rehearse it every day. And it's exhausting. Women feel that exhaustion immediately. They sense the performance, the insecurity hiding beneath it, the uncertainty pretending to be confidence. But the man who stops performing, who decides to be himself, flaws included, that man is rare. And rare things are remembered, not because they're perfect, but because they're real. In a world full of performance, authenticity stands out, and that's why she doesn't forget him. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You can't fake this. You can't study it. You can't download it. You can't turn it into a technique. The moment you treat authenticity like a method, it disappears. Realness can't be manufactured. It can only be lived. So the real question becomes simple and serious. What are you actually doing with your life right now? Not what you say you want to do, not what you plan to do someday. What are you building? What are you working toward? What are you willing to sacrifice for? These answers matter more than you think, because a woman can feel the difference between a man who is living and a man who is just passing time. She senses direction, she senses drift. The man with direction stands out, not because he's impressive, but because he's intentional. A man doesn't need a perfect job to have direction. He doesn't need unlimited resources, he just needs movement. He needs to be going somewhere. Even slowly, even imperfectly, that's what matters. Most men aren't moving toward anything. They're reacting, waiting, hoping life improves on its own. So when a woman meets a man who is building something, creating something, choosing his own path, she notices, and she remembers. Now let's talk about self-respect, because this holds everything together. Self-respect isn't thinking you're better than others. It isn't ego. It isn't arrogance. It's much quieter than that. It's treating yourself like you matter. Most men don't. They sacrifice their well-being for approval. They abandon their values for comfort. They trade long-term growth for short-term distraction. And it shows. It shows in their posture, in their decisions, in what they tolerate. A man without self-respect is flexible in the wrong ways. He can be pushed, moved, reshaped. He has no center. But a man with self-respect is steady where it counts. He takes care of his body, not for vanity, but because he values himself. He protects his time and energy because he knows they're finite. He maintains his standards because he knows his worth. Women never forget this man because he represents stability, groundedness, something dependable. Let me show you how this looks in real life. He doesn't constantly check his phone when he's with her. Not to appear detached, but because his attention is deliberate. He doesn't mold himself into what she wants. He brings himself, his ideas, his opinions, his perspective. He's open, but not empty. He's interested, but not desperate. He doesn't chase endlessly. He offers himself, take it or leave it. That's rare. And rare things are remembered, because most women have spent their lives around men who adjust themselves endlessly, trying to earn approval, trying to be chosen. Then they meet a man who isn't trying to convince them of anything. He's just being himself, and that stands out. Now we need to talk about purpose, because this is what connects everything. Purpose doesn't mean changing the world. It doesn't mean being extraordinary. It means moving towards something that matters to you, something that gives your days direction, something that requires effort, something that asks you to grow. A man with purpose wakes up with intention. He's not just surviving the day, he's building towards something. And women feel that immediately. They can sense the difference between a man who is alive and a man who is just going through motions. The man with purpose isn't waiting for someone else to give his life meaning. He's not hoping a relationship will save him. He's creating his own reasons to exist, and that is magnetic, not because it's flashy, but because it's real. A man can have a modest life and still have purpose. He can face setbacks and still have direction. What matters is movement. Most men aren't moving anywhere. They drift, they react, they wait for something good to happen. So when a woman meets a man who is actually going somewhere, building something, choosing his own path, she remembers him. Because he represents possibility. Now let me be very clear. This has nothing to do with impressing women. This isn't about making them chase you. This is about becoming a man worth remembering. A man who leaves an impression simply by being real. When you live like this, with clarity, with direction, with self-respect, everything changes. Not because women suddenly chase you, but because you're living a life worth being part of. People are drawn to that, women included. So what does this actually require from you? First, you must stop seeking approval from everyone. Your parents, your friends, society, potential partners. You have to accept that some people won't like you. Some won't understand you. Some will judge you. That's not a problem. That's necessary. Because the moment you try to please everyone, you disappear. Second, you must decide what actually matters to you. Not what should matter, not what others say matters. What makes you feel alive? What are you willing to work for? What are you willing to sacrifice for? That takes honesty, deep honesty. Third, you commit to becoming the man who can live that life. That means growth, failure, learning, getting back up. Fourth, you hold your standards, not to reject others, but to respect yourself. Your standards define your life. They decide who you allow close, what you accept, what you refuse. And finally, you understand this is a process. There is no final version of you, no arrival point. You are always becoming, and that's the point. The woman who sees this process, a man committed to growth, a man who respects himself, a man moving towards something meaningful, she never forgets him. Now let's talk about something deeper, the grounding beneath all of this. There is a way of being that is distinctly masculine. Not aggressive, not controlling, not toxic, grounded, stable, clear. It's the state of being rooted in something solid, a foundation that doesn't shift with opinions, moods, or outside pressure. Most men have lost this. They've been taught to adjust constantly, to please, to react, to depend on approval. But the man who reclaims his grounding, who chooses to be solid, intentional, and clear, that man is magnetic. Not because he tries to be, because he is. People feel it. Women especially, they trust him, not because he's perfect, but because he's consistent. He doesn't change depending on what she wants. He doesn't disappear under pressure. He doesn't lose himself when things get hard. That's rare. And rare things are remembered. Here's how this shows up in real life. When you're grounded, you don't argue to defend yourself. You don't over-explain. You state your position calmly, and you stand by it. You're okay with disagreement. You're okay with being misunderstood, because you're not asking for permission to be who you are. When you're grounded, you can be vulnerable. Not from weakness, from strength. You can admit mistakes, ask for help, be uncertain about small things while remaining certain about what matters. You can listen to a woman without trying to fix her, without trying to control her. You honor her perspective without abandoning your own. Most men can't do this. They either dominate or disappear. They force or submit. Very few stand in the middle, strong and open, certain and flexible, grounded and alive. That man stands out. That man is unforgettable. So understand this clearly. This is not a strategy, not a technique, not something you do to make women want you. It's something you become. Because you decide your life is worth living fully. The woman who remembers you doesn't remember you for what you did. She remembers you for who you were, because you were real, because you were grounded, because you were alive. In a world full of pretending, that's revolutionary. So stop asking how to be remembered. Ask who you need to become to live a life worth remembering. That question changes everything, because when you focus on becoming, on growth, on purpose, on integrity. Everything else follows naturally. You don't need to try to stand out. You just need to be real. And that's worth returning for. That's worth subscribing for. Because this work, this inner work, is what actually matters. Thank you for being here.